Hey guys, welcome to another episode. Today is a very exciting day. Today we're going to start working on more of the interior. We're going to be putting carpet padding in. We've already installed our sound deadening material. I saved you the not so exciting content of peel, stick, cut. Peel, stick. So I'll show you what we've done with that so far. I've got a bunch of 4mm thick sound deadening material inside the car already. And we sprayed the bottom, that primer gray that was all over the metal. Now sprayed black with a nice Rust-Oleum to make sure it's protected. So that's already taken care of, but we're going to start moving into some more of this carpeting. We're going to be putting down some GP padding. This is actually the same kind of padding that we used for our 850 when we put the new carpet in that. That was a custom carpet. We cut that out of some just big square pieces, but we actually have an actual carpet kit that we have here flattening out, because it's been all rolled up. So we're going to start cutting this to trim to fit, put the carpet in. This is going to be over a couple days. We're going to start working on all of the interior. Door cards, door handles, window cranks, of course the carpet today. We'll see what else we can get to today depending on what time does, having this glue dry, stuff like that. But we're going to be working on all of that exciting stuff. And it's going to start looking like a real car. And we're getting that much closer to being done, which is kind of weird. But one thing at a time. Let's start working on this carpet. We'll get this padding cut up and fit. We're just going to make some little templates out of it. Not going to be perfect. It's just to fill in the gaps where the sound deadener isn't and make it a little softer underneath this brand new carpet. So enough talking. Let's start cutting and let's start getting it laid down. Alright, so the first thing we're going to want to do is start cutting up this material. This is just a bunch of fibers pressed together. It's really cheap. If you think about like a moving blanket, like one of the U-Haul moving blankets that they rent you, this is exactly what it is. It's not super thick, anything like that, but it's enough to be a good barrier, and it fills in the gaps of where the sound deadener is and stuff like that. And again, just to make it softer under our step when we're in the car. The whole goal is to make sure heat from this transmission tunnel does not come through. And of course the road heat, things like that, we don't want that to soak up and through. This 4mm thick sound deadener is going to be great. It's in the doors, it's on the floor, on the transmission tunnel. We even have some of this insulation here. This is actually meant for attics, but we can cut it up and we put it in some of the more heat-prone areas. Up by the bell housing, way up in there, underneath the heater core, stuff like that, where there's going to be more heat. We made sure to put some of that on there with some of our adhesive. So what we're going to be doing is the same thing with our spray adhesive. We're just going to be cutting out pieces of this and laying it down. We'll spray down this first to let it get tacky, spray some on the actual material, let this get tacky, and just start laying it down from the top and work our way this way. We'll do it on both sides. One thing you'll notice is I do not have sound deadener in the back seats area. The previous owner left the original stuff still adhered on here, so I'm not super worried about putting it on top. Plus this is going to be behind us under our seat, away from us, so I'm not super worried about it. So what we're going to do is start getting this worked up and getting this sprayed up, start getting it put down. So we're going to start looking like a real car again. I do apologize for the fans. It is, again, another hot one here in Texas, so we're not messing around. I don't want to die out here. So let's time-lapse some of this. We'll get this cut out and laid down. Very simple. Anybody can do this. So real quick, I just want to show you guys what we're doing here. You can see we just got it kind of stuffed up there, nothing really pretty. We might cut the edge off there and the end there to make it a little bit easier to lay in there. We still have to cut out the hole for our gas pedal stop, the little bump stop down there. But all of this is cut out. I just cut this extra wide to make sure we sit around this seat mount here. Do have to do a little bit more to get rid of this wrinkle here. But this is all we're really doing. It's just trim to fit and nothing beautiful. This is all going to be covered by carpet, so I'm not worried about it being perfectly form fitted or anything like that. insulation is in. It's not super pretty, but it definitely works. And again, it's not side to side, it's not covering absolutely everything. We could go crazy and do the sides and, you know, get all this covered, and we could. You know, we're just covering the main areas, big patches, really easy to do. Use a bunch of little scraps to cover up these little areas here underneath the center console. You know, we can go over that if we wanted to, and up even higher on the back here, but I'm really satisfied with this. I'm mostly worried about down by our feet, not really over here. The transmission tunnel is well covered on the bottom on both sides. All that insulation is going to make a huge difference. The wheel wells are covered, so no heat coming through the road on the tires there. So it's all nice and covered, just how I want it. So the next thing we're going to want to do is take a screwdriver. We're going to heat up the end of the screwdriver, maybe not this one specifically, but we're going to take a screwdriver and we're going to punch the holes where our seatbelt pieces are, if I can find it. There it is. So there's a seatbelt guide here. The seatbelt is supposed to go. We'll heat up a screwdriver and it'll melt right through that carpet. It'll leave a nice round hole, and we don't have to go chase it down later. So we're going to punch them out on both sides here. Now if you did the carpet on that side as well, you'll have to punch those. But our carpet kit comes with them already riveted in it, so I'm not worried about that on those. So we're making progress. We're going to keep on working here. I'm really excited to see the carpet in this, and then I think we're going to start moving into the door cards. But what we're going to do with this carpet is we're going to start from the outside in. So we're going to work on all the outside trim pieces, then the back, and then the last piece we're going to put in is the floorboard where our feet go. Those are going to be the very last thing to kind of set and hold everything back on both sides. So we'll start all around here and get everything covered. So let's get these holes punched out and we'll start laying some carpet in here. It's very important that you test fit everything while you're going along before you put any glue down. And this looks like it's going to fit really well. We have this flap that will glue to our lip here. It looks good, fits nice and well. So I think we're going to move on to do this one first, and we'll work all the way to the outside, come to the middle, then the back, and then finally the front. It's amazing what kind of difference adding some carpet does to the inside of a car. Now our center console is going to cover all that, so I'm not too worried about this. Our seats are going to cover that, I'm not worried about that. On our passenger side, we did come up a little short up in that corner, but I didn't pull that side piece down enough to cover it, so that's actually my fault. But the molds and forms on these are really accurate, where the humps are and things like that. You might have seen where I use a screwdriver to align the holes for the belts. That way we don't miss those, so those are all aligned as well. But it's amazing what adding some carpet does to the interior. Just really brings it back to life, and it's super thick, so that's a huge plus, and it looks so much better. It's not so much like a project car anymore, it's like a real car. So what that means now is we're gonna let this dry for a while. It's really hot outside today, so it's perfect for this. We're gonna let that glue dry. I used like a can and a half out of adhesive, super high strength adhesive, so it's definitely gonna stay on there. But I definitely want this to cure for a while, which gives us the opportunity to move on to our door cards. I'm gonna get them down from there in that box. We're gonna bring them out, take a look at them, and see if we can start fitting those. So these door panels are actually beige, they're not black. So we're gonna paint them, and we have the right kind of paint to do that. So we're gonna take a look at them, and we're gonna get them fitted on the car. I'm not afraid to paint anything. I think I've kind of proven that. So we'll make it our own. All sorts of DIY. Oh, these look so good. All wrapped and everything. Sealed. Man, that's awesome. No moisture in these things. Oh yeah, would you look at that? That is awesome. Now if we had the tan or beige interior, we'd be set to go. But we have black, and this is not gonna match at all. But we have the right kind of paint. I'm gonna show you guys how to do it. So we're actually gonna be painting this panel. I'm not gonna tape off the chrome rivet there for our door handle. We still have to cut the hole for our window crank, but I'm gonna hold off on that, as well as holes for an armrest. I honestly don't really like the armrests, so we may not be using those. We'll see how it goes, but what we're gonna be doing is color coat. It is gloss black. It is 15233, and this is like a flexible paint that's meant for this kind of panels. It's been tested true and suggested and recommended. So we're gonna shake this up real well, and we're gonna go paint this in nice even strokes. We'll do some light coats and build up from there. We're gonna do our passenger door first, and then we're gonna go to our driver's door. I did a quick test fit for these, and they fit absolutely perfect. And it really dresses up the car. So we're gonna do some light coats on this. I've got the car covered in towels, things like that. I don't want the overspray. And we're gonna see how it goes. Nice, even sprays. All right, like I said, nice misted coats. We're gonna go nice and light. We're gonna let that dry for a couple minutes, let it get a little tacky, and go again for another coat. Once we get this nice and dark, we're gonna do the same thing on the other door panel. And I can always come back on that chrome piece with, you know, like a magic eraser or something like that, and get that black off of there. So I'm not too worried about that. You can tape it off with something like this, some 3M automotive masking tape, or even blue painter's tape will work. But we're gonna let that dry up and do another coat. All right, it's been a few minutes. We're gonna do another coat. All right, another few minutes, and we're gonna let that dry and tack up and do another layer. This is gonna be our final layer, and we're gonna go on a little heavier to really let it sit, and then we're gonna really let this dry and cure for a while. The panels are still drying. I've got one here and I've got one over there. But I've been messing around with this extra piece of carpet. When I went to the open house, I asked for some extra scraps of stuff and they had some pieces left laying around. So I took that, and I'm gonna be completely honest. I've never been a fan of the super long center console, how it comes all the way back, you got your ashtrays, and it's just really big and bulky and getting butt, and I just don't like it. So I got a piece of this scrap and I cut it to fit pretty well actually. I made it up to the finished edge on the back. Of course this will all get burned and finished up, but I think I like this better. Go here, cut up another piece. There's that wider end I just showed you. We can actually cut that to fit here and meet around to this and complete it. Maybe we can melt them together or glue them together on the back or something like that. It'll squeeze all this down. We'll have to cut a little relief cut here on the other side, I think, to suck it in. And it'll come up and into here. And the factory center console, I could cut it right there because there is a flat part before the ashtray. Cut it there, and then we'll have to see what it looks like if we cut it. But that carpet will cover that gap, but we can always put some foam and make our own, fill it in, sand it, fill it kind of thing. But it'll still be the factory from the front to the handbrake, and we'll make our own boot cover to cover all this. We'll clean it up, get it covered with like a little drawstring on it, and just maybe get some screws holding it down to help hold the carpet as well. But I think I like this a lot more than the original whole long center console, because the one we have is tan, so we're gonna have to paint it, and it's cracked to all heck, which is very common. So we're gonna have to fill it in and sand it anyway. So rather than filling it in and sanding the whole length of it and then recovering it like we did our dash, then it saves us that much more work on the back end. And I just like this a lot more. It's a lot cleaner. Kind of reminds me of our 850, where it was just a super clean center and not a whole lot to it. So I'm gonna cut the other piece of this and I'm gonna fit it up and see if we can make that work. So this is more of what I'm thinking. Is this back part is nice and even there. It melts. We would melt these together and it fits really well on both sides. And then this can get sucked down. It's really hard to show you with one hand. So those will get sucked down. We'll cut some reliefs here so that'll fold down with it, and then it'll go all the way flat, and it'll be a little kick up kind of like that to cover some of this tunnel as well. But that's what I'm thinking, is this is a lot better. It's the same carpet, matches, it's finished. It kind of sucks everything down and hides a little bit more of that stuff, but we'd have to melt these edges down, make them look a little bit better. So I think that's more of what we're going to go with. I know people are probably not going to like that, but there's nothing about this car that's original. Well, maybe a little bit, but there's a lot of original to me that I like, personalize what this car's about, make it what I want. So I think that's much better. And then I'll work with my wife and we'll come up with something for this, clean it up, and make a nice little boot for that. Fit really well around that. Maybe a little bit more trimming on this side. So that turned out really good. So let's start seeing if we can combine those two pieces, cut some reliefs, and see what we can get this to work. That is actually glued in there, and I'm digging it. I'm not a big fan of the slit, so maybe I should have done it out of one piece and then slid it over the handle and then set it in there. But it matches up pretty good on the back. It's got the nice finished edge. We did the burn, so it's all nice and even. The other good thing is when the seats are in, all the sides are going to be covered, so you only really see the carpet part, and then when we get that center console redone and trimmed, it'll cover all that in the front. But it's starting to look a lot better. I like that. Way more easy to deal with. So I'm just liking that a lot better. Personal choice, maybe not everybody likes it, but I'm a fan. Easier to clean, don't have to worry about wrapping it, all that stuff, filling in all the cracks on the original one. Just kind of simplifies it, and that's what I like. So these door cards are pretty dry. They look good. You don't see any spray lines, any striping, anything like that. Looks good. We were able to get onto the sides. You can see a little bit of the beige in the crease. Like that. I'd have to go down and pull it all down and spray it, but I'm not that worried about it. So we're going to start mounting these onto the car and see how they look. Let's fit this on and see how it looks. looks really good. But on the back side, we can still see the tan, so we need to paint that on this one, because you can see it through the glass. I don't think even with our felt trim that goes on here, that'll hide it, so we need to paint the back side of that. But that fits nice and well, and we'll be able to see where our window handle comes in right here. We're going to cut a little X so it'll slide through as little material as possible. That way when we put our window crank on there, it won't have cuts in our brand new panel. The other thing is before we even put this on officially, we need to go in here and put a vapor barrier. So we're going to put a piece of plastic here. I have these inserts for this side. I don't have it for the other, so I'll put them in. But we're going to put a piece of plastic over this to protect the moisture to stay in. So any water that comes to the top of the door should go straight out the bottom and not affect the cardboard material of the door cards. And that's just simple double-sided tape, nice tight plastic, pushing it on there. So we're going to do these on both doors before those panels go on. So let's get that panel painted, and then we'll start working on the vapor barriers. And by then that door should be dry. We can start mounting it all up. Let's try that fitment one more time. Much better with that backside painted to match. Centered to our hole for our door handle. Now we're going to mark where our window is, right there. So I'm going to make it protrude. I'm just going to cut a little X. Should see it start to come through there. Trying to cut some of the fibers from the material. See, I kept it nice and tight. Push it through there just like that. You can barely see any of the material, and it keeps it nice and snug in that spot as well. Yeah, that looks really good on there. The last thing we'll need to do is use some more of this double-sided tape, and we'll go on the outside. A lot of people have used screws, and I just don't like that. I just like the nice clean look here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the edge and put some double-sided tape at strategic points, maybe not so much around the top, but here at this end and on the outside end of the door. Make sure it's all the way down, and then we can start putting the tape on there and really press it in. We might even grab some clamps to really kind of keep it tight as we go around, especially on the outside of the door. We run into that curve, and so the door panel wants to stay straight, so we really have to push that in to keep it there. So let's start cutting some of this up and start putting the door card on. The door card is on, we got that window crank on, and we've also got our nice shiny door handle on. And that looks so good, nice, clean, simple. That's what I'm after. I'm not really a big fan of the armrest, so we might just go without it. I know there's supposed to be the silver kick panel too, and I have a set of those along with the trim that goes down here, but I don't know if I want that. It's a lot of flashy. I just like to keep it simple. But we have a whole nother door to do, so that's where I'm going to be. The double-sided tape isn't holding super well, but maybe we just gotta let it sit for a while and really stick and bond to it. So we're gonna let that sit and move on to the other door. Vapor barrier, hand crank, door handle, same thing, just over there. All right, guys, it is the next day. We are still working on the interior of our car. We got all that carpet and padding installed yesterday. Our quarter panels on the inside for the back seat, those are in. Our door cards are in with our window cranks and our door handles. Those are all installed. We got that vapor barrier installed. A lot of work has gone into putting that in yesterday, so we're going to continue that in today. I debated splitting this up into a couple days, but I'd just rather make it one big video rather than splitting it up, because it's just all interior related, so might as well keep it all together. So today we're going to start working on that center console, that custom cut. I'm going to pull it down from the rafters up here that I've got stored forever, bring it down, start repairing that. While that's in between drying and things like that, we'll work on some other parts of the interior. Maybe that upper center console that's got the wood piece on it, and some other small things here or there in between it all. But first things first, we've got to clean up this place. It is an utter disaster. There's trash everywhere, tools all over the place, and I hate searching for tools that you just had in your hand 2 seconds ago. So we're going to reset the shop, we're going to get everything cleaned up, and we're going to jump on that center console. All right, so we've got most of that stuff cleaned up and I feel so much better. It's like the weight lifted off your shoulders, everything's cleaned up, put away where we wanted to. We also grabbed our center console out of the top. Now if you notice the theme, it's beige. And a lot of the damage that's on it is actually going to be on the back half. And this is the half that we're actually not really interested in. You know, in this corner, all around the handbrake stop, here, massive crack along this side, the chewed out corner. But the good thing is the front half, which we're interested in, is actually in really good shape. On this side, all the way up to about here. The top looks good, no big cracks. Same thing on this side, nice, good shape, no chunks missing out of it, anything like that. Now this is where the dilemma comes in. Do we want to stop it right at the shifter and cut all this off? Or do we want to keep this front ashtray and use it for something like a cup, holder, or... Really? Don't you just love when your compressor comes on in the middle of a conversation?
A few moments later.
Are you done? Anyway, or our other option is to keep this, and they make like an aftermarket plastic drop-in for like change, or you know, maybe we'll keep this and we can put like stickers in it and stuff like that for car shows, and keep that in there. And it's a lot less to cut. So we cut this probably straight down, and then we would fill it in with foam to make up that difference. For all we know, it may be really close to the center in there to where we don't really have to fill up much at all. If we even need the foam, we'd probably do a cardboard backing and put the foam on top of it and sand it and all that good stuff. But it'd be really nice to just cut it and then just use that same vinyl paint that we use for the door cards on this to make it match, because the rest of it's in really good shape. All this is up by your foot, so I'm not super worried about that. It just needs to be cleaned up for sure before it's painted. It's all dusty. It's been sitting up in the rafters for months and months. So I think let's start here. We'll cut this off first, straight down, we'll mark it. And if we don't like it, then we can always move up because we can't really add it back on. So always leave too much. So we're gonna cut this straight off. I know you purists are gonna be really mad at me and I'm sorry, but I mean, this is what I want to do. So let's get our cutter out and we'll cut that off and see how it fits. So we are separated. The back is officially off from the front. Set that to the side, and you kind of see what we came up with here. So you can see it's got a metal core. I'm not going to touch it because it's going to be really hot. Nice metal core, so at least we know it's rigid. I had no idea those were metal. I thought they were just foam all the way through. But yeah, so it looks good. We're definitely going to clean this up. I don't think my cut is super straight, so we may have to, you can see it's a little closer there and a little farther out there. We might take the flapper, put it on our grinder, just kind of flatten that out. But let's go do a test fit to see how this looks. So we're going to give this a test fit. We're going to see if we can get our wires a little bit better out of our way, at least as best as we can. Come over the top, over our shifter, ignore the flasher relay dangling down. All these little tabs are driving me nuts. Go forward a little bit. Gotta make sure our hole lines up with our mounting bracket down here. All right. It's actually pretty cool. I do like that. My thing is how we're gonna fabricate something to continue down to cover all that. It is pushed all the way forward. So let me get in here. It is all the way forward to where those brackets are touching, where the tabs kind of lock it in place. That's basically where we're going to be sitting. Maybe level it out a little bit, but general concept. So we're going to have to figure this out. Either we can flatten it down and we rewrap the dash in like a vinyl, which I'm not super thrilled about because of all these crevices and curving it around and glue not wanting to stick. I'd rather just paint it. I don't really want to put, you know, foam and sand down the foam. But for concept wise, I do really like it. It fits well, it's in there. So we just got to figure out this end portion, how to kind of dress that up, because it's just a big eyesore. The seat will come, you know, up to here and cover that portion of it, but you're going to see all this, especially the shiny silver. So we're going to have to sit on this, we're going to think about that for a little bit and see what we can come up with. But I think first things first, we'll put the flapper on and even this out so it's flush on both sides, right to where the curve meets the straight part of the center console here, so there's no curve at the end like this. So that way it's nice and flush all the way across. So we've got this all wiped down, got a lot of the dirt off. There's still a little bit, but it's not going to be perfect. So it looks already 1,000 times better, despite all the fading. So we're going to put some more of our kind of vinyl paint on here, so we can get it all to match. We're going to repaint that as well, that way it's all the same shade. You don't want it 2 different shades, it's going to look funky, but we're going to do the same thing like we did on the door cards, dust coating a couple times and then one good thick coat at the very end and let it dry in between. So we still got some of the cleaner on there. So I'm going to dry this off and we're going to do some nice layers on it. We've already got our template cut out for the back side, and while this dries in between coats, we're going to attack that. So I've got the fans going. I know it's going to be a little loud and kind of annoying, but I'm doing my best to speak up so you guys can hear me. We've got our little piece cut out here, and we've got our marks on the back to try and help us keep it straight. We're going to cut off a lot of extra to make sure we have some nice good folds so we're not fighting the material. So I think I'm going to want to start top down because this is the top. We'll go like this. We'll get some dabs of super glue going. Okay, so now that it's on there, we'll do it again on the bottom. We're just kind of wrapping it like a present. We'll start cutting off the excess as we get to these tricky corners. The next question is going to be, what are we going to do with this? So this is our center console where our hazard, our cigarette lighter, our kind of dome light goes. So we have a couple options. We can leave it like this, but it doesn't match with what's already in there. So that's kind of out of the question. We could wrap it in some vinyl and cut out these holes, maybe, or we could paint it. And I'm kind of more feeling the painting it. I'll try it on the back side where someone's clearly tried to hot glue it back on and not very well. But we'll try it with some paint first. I'll scuff it up with a Scotch-Brite, get it nice and coarse so the paint has something to stick to. And we'll give it a couple coats and see how well it holds up durability-wise. But I'm thinking that the whole center console just being black will be nice to just kind of fade it into the middle of the car and not be so attention-grabbing with different colored wood and everything. I want that dash to really just light up inside the car and be the main focus. So let's try this with some paint, scuff it up, and see how it comes out. It's amazing what some paint can do. This looks brand new. You would never know that this was all tan and dirty and gross, and it took really well. It's on there. We let it sit in the sun for a good amount of time. We're going to pull off our weight here, and this is our end cap. It's going to go roughly like that. It's not the prettiest thing ever. Definitely doesn't have the curve to it, but you know, it's good enough for what we're going for. Covers most of it, just not an open gap, but we'll take that. Maybe we'll put a sticker on there. I don't know. It's meant to hide it. That's all that really matters. Works for me. Maybe we'll paint it. Why don't we do that? We'll paint it with the same paint. That way it matches the rest of it and doesn't stand out as much. So we'll paint that to match it. It should take onto that material just fine. So next thing we're going to want to do is take some cardboard thinner than this. I have some different stuff. We're going to go from underneath and we're going to trace out this pattern. Now there's supposed to be a wood piece of trim here for the shifter, but I'm not really wanting to cut this out and then if it frays and staining and the stain doesn't match the other one. So again, I'm going back for the black I have some scrap metal left over from when we welded our floors with Jesse. I'll put a link up there for that video where we went to Eldest Builds shop and fixed our floors. And we'll make a template out of metal for that and see how that turns out. We've roughed out a template for this middle part. I wanted to sit on top, so I made it a little bigger. I came from the bottom, traced it out, that's what you see here. I just overdid it and slowly trimmed a little by little. We cut off the corners a little too short, so we just know on our metal to come all the way to a 90. Or just follow this line here to finish that out. But that's in there. It's a pretty good snug fit. And there's gonna be two, I guess, kind of rivets or bolts, however we want to do that. Probably rivets, holding those on, and then we'll have to measure for where our shifter is gonna go on here to cut that hole out for that. But I like the way this looks. We're just gonna grab some metal and we're gonna cut this shape out roughly with the grinder and get it fit in there and start shaving off little by little to get that fit. This is how our template turned out. We aren't perfect. There's a little gap up here, a little bit on the side, but it fits pretty good in the black. Well, it'll blend it all in and kind of hide it too, so I'm not too worried about that. We also have some heat tape to put on the back side of this. So the next challenge is going to be going in there and measuring where to cut the hole for the shifter. I don't have an original piece. I should have kept the one that came with the car, now that I think about it. Maybe I do up in the shelf somewhere, but if I do, I can use that as kind of a center to cut out the hole for the shifter. I don't want to just blindly cut a massive hole and then we have to cover it all up. So let's get this back in there and we'll kind of gauge with some blue tape. We'll make a little grid and that'll give us an idea of where to cut it on this. So I just took some yellow masking tape. This is automotive masking tape, and I just went from 5th gear, 2nd gear, 1st, reverse, and I marked that in this center square is basically where we'll need to cut our hole. So if I transpose this onto our piece of metal, I'll cut our hole a little bit bigger than this. Of course, it'll be round, and that way we know exactly where to drill our hole. We've got it in there. It's a little tall on the top side. When I go forward, there's still plenty of space. On the bottom, it's a little tight, but it does go into gear just fine. It doesn't hit. So I could have made the hole a little smaller on the top side, but our shift boot's going to cover all this and I'm not too worried about that. So next thing is going to be to take this out. We are going to prep it like this side. So the bottom, we actually have some heat tape that we're going to put on the bottom to keep the transmission heat down. There's not as much barrier like on the transmission tunnel. So we're going to put some heat tape on here, make sure we have a cutout for that. And then we're going to wait till the very end to rivet it in place. But we're going to paint this black, going to prep it just like that. Make sure it's nice and clean, degreased, all that stuff, and paint that with a few nice layers of black paint. And then we'll be able to start coming up with a shift boot. That's, you know, way down the line for looks, but there's a big part of the puzzle taken care of. So we're going to be jumping onto this next while everything dries. This is that cooling tape I was telling you about. It's this reflective stuff. It's rated for up to 400 degrees. So I'm going to coat the bottom of this. I'm going to wipe it down, get it clean, and put on a nice piece of this on here on both sides. That way it keeps that transmission heat down and away from us, because this is going to be the #1 place where all that heat comes through. We're also going to put it on the bottom side of that metal piece we just cut for our shifter. We're going to put it on the bottom of that also to make sure there's absolutely as minimal heat coming through this as possible. We've got that tape on there. It doesn't cover it 100%, but it covers it a lot, and some is better than none. I don't really want to waste this because this is super expensive stuff. You know, I could do it all in one piece and then trim it and have a bunch of excess, but this is expensive stuff and I don't want to waste it like that. Plus we still got our other piece. That one I might lay on top of it and trace it and do it all one piece to make it easy, because I don't want any overlap like we did on here, because we've got a painted top. So this is a good progress on the way to keeping the heat down. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than nothing. Hey guys, welcome to day 3, I think it is, We've done 2 days before of interior work. Today's going to be the last day. It's been a few days since the last clip you just saw, so we're really going to be wrapping up this today. We are going to be putting the seats in it, by vacuuming it, make sure all the loose stuff's out of there, make sure everything is seated where it's supposed to be. I've let it sit for a few days just to really let stuff dry. I didn't want to touch a bunch of stuff when it's all tacky and get those thumbprints in the paint and stuff like that, so it's been sitting in the hot garage for like three days, something like that. So it's all dry now, should be all cured, and no more problems there. There's only a couple things that we're not going to be touching on. The shifter boots, nothing really crazy fancy there. You can actually buy aftermarket ones that fit just fine, so we may even go that route and put those in here. But we're going to be knocking out the rest of this interior, getting it all done, wrapped up. I know this has been a long video, especially over several days. We've covered a lot of things when it comes to the interior. So we're going to try and wrap it up real quick for you guys. So let's get stuff vacuumed out, cleaned up, start putting some stuff away. And what's crazy is we're actually coming really close to the end of this project, which is kind of weird to say because we've done so much, but it seems like we haven't done enough. But it's weird. We're almost kind of like done, but not yet. We're not going to cross that bridge yet. Let's get this stuff cleaned up, get it vacuumed out, and get these seats in. Well, it's not 100% perfect. We're still waiting on a couple pieces. But man, does it look like a car again. No more gray primer floors, no more rust, all taken care of. I know y'all are ready to see it all put together, at least where we are to this point. You ready? Here we go. Man, this interior looks good. It feels so nice sitting in it. It doesn't feel really like a project anymore. It actually feels like something that's coming together. Seats, carpet, center console, the dash we did a long time ago, the wheel, door cards. I mean, we're really close. A couple things, radio delete, little block off, not really hard. Shifter boot and a handbrake cable, handbrake boot, also not super hard. My wife's gonna help me on that, so big shout out to her on that. But don't worry, we're not done yet. We still have one really big upgrade to show you guys. That's gonna be the next episode. I'm gonna show you guys that. So make sure you guys are subscribed and hit that bell for the notifications and make sure that you know when that video drops. And we're also going to be upgrading away from our clock. I know a lot of you have seen it. It's pretty ugly because it's broken. So we're going to move away from that clock, and I want to go to an oil pressure gauge. That way I just kind of have more information about how the engine's doing and the health of the engine. So we'll be doing a video in the future on that as well. So make sure you guys are subscribed. You don't want to miss any of that. But I'm itching for a drive. And I know it's been a long episode. I thank you guys so much for sticking around and sticking all the way through it. I know it can get kind of drawn out sometimes, but it's just part of the process. So thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me out. Thank you so much for subscribing. We also have some shirts and drink sleeves still available. The shirts are $15, drink sleeves are $5. Make sure to send me an email, garagetimetv@gmail.com, and we'll get you an order placed. If you don't know what they look like, let me show you. These are the drink sleeves. They're two-sided. They got the logo on them. They're only $5. And the shirts, Got the logo on the front. They are only $15, and those ship priority mail. So make sure to send me an email, get yourselves a shirt and a drink sleeve. It really supports the channel so we can continue to make builds like this. Thank you so much for all of you that have already ordered. We are starting to get low on these, so if you want one, you gotta hurry up. But enough of that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Y'all have a good one. And until next time, we'll see ya.